Hello, Courtney.
Boris, good to see you.
Good to see you, Courtney. Courtney is my good old friend. I know him for over 20 years. He spent a quarter of a century in a counter surveillance with the FBI. He is a friend whom I cherish not only because of my personal friendship, but because also of his incredible professional capabilities and knowledge. And Courtney, as I told you before, I am involved helping the citizen movement called Anonymous of basically young kids who are fighting a cult that enslaves people, that takes their money, that beats them up, that chews them up, that takes their own mind, deprives them of their personality. And there is a number of these people who left the cult. This cult is called Scientology, and I am trying to pick your brain how to avoid infiltration.
Well, that's a big menu for me, Boris. Thank you for inviting me, of course. First of all, in my 23 years with the FBI, probably about 50% of it was in the criminal division, and the other 50% in what we call FCI, or Foreign Counterintelligence. In both cases, we become familiar with aspects of criminology, whether it be from foreign intelligence services or whether it's born within our country, similar to Scientology and so forth, with efforts on their behalf to penetrate our services. So that, of course, is nothing new. I have no personal experience with Scientology per se, so I want to make sure that you and that your viewers certainly know that. However, I do welcome the opportunity to provide you any overall experiences that I may have had, but probably more important, and that is the things that one or groups need to be aware of in terms of the kinds of apparatus and the kinds of approaches that groups, whether they are internal or whether they're external, coming from outside the United States, use in this type of work.
Courtney, there is a very important aspect of the whole fight of Anonymous against Scientology. It is that, do you know of any church that in its organization has intelligence service and counterintelligence service? In Scientology it is called OSA. They do the harassment, they do the surveillance, they do the all kinds of nasty things. And my question is, in your experience, criminal and counterintelligence, how would you classify a church that has those two services?
Well, didn't know you were going to ask me that question. It's a good question. I must say it. Are you sure you're not asking me to respond to a terrorist organization or to the KGB? I must say that certainly in my experience, an affiliation to the church that I'm affiliated with in this country, I would say that the only negative aspect I ever can refer to is back when I was 10 years old, and I used to skip out on choir practice,
and they yelled at you.
And I used to think, as the choir director, as someone that possibly was close to a criminal. In fact, actually, I say that somewhat.
But he wouldn't put you in
somewhat
prison.
pithily, but he wouldn't put you in prison. But no, I would say that categorically.
Okay.
For a church.
Yes. If a church is running its own prison, gulag, like, where you can be found guilty of, for example, getting on internet without permission, and they put you for a year and a half or 2 years in their private prison, where you get garbage food, the rest of this what others ate, and you have to wear a certain prison-like clothing for a year and a half, 2 years sometimes. Is that a church-like, you think, or is it a criminal offense, you think?
Well, I'm not too sure that that I'm qualified to make a judgment as to whether or not it's criminal or not, because I'm certainly not a judge. But I must say that what you described to me almost sounds, prior to the Putsch, the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, it almost sounds like prisons in Romania or Czechoslovakia or Bulgaria,
Poland.
et al. Poland. But no, I mean, again, I don't profess, and I think I've mentioned to you before much about Scientology, but if this is the nexus that you're making, I would say that myself, including most Americans, would be stunned if that in fact is the case, of course.
And in case those people accept, the members of so-called church, accept such a punishment, would it indicate total brainwashing of these people by their organization / church / anything else?
Well, again, I don't know, and I don't mean to be. I don't mean to take a neutral position. The fact of the matter is I don't know. The assumption that I would make with my experience is that anyone that would find themselves in that position, I don't know if you'd want to use the word brainwashing, but perhaps maybe that's a good cloak, because it describes a situation similar to the Stockholm Syndrome and many other types of situations where either under duress or under long periods of training,
right,
that without having what we refer to as an anchor that you can hold on to, or one that perhaps maybe is weak in the beginning, it can be taken over, and we see this in cults. We see this in some cases in organized crime, usually in the youth crimes, MS-13, for example, today, as opposed to my generation, which was more the organized crime groups out of Chicago and New York. But nevertheless, the same element exists, and the only difference is if you take advantage of the naivete, using the platform of a church or religion or something that can survive outside our Constitution, because you have to remember now that we have strict adherence to the Constitution, which says that we have separation of church and state, that it's something that law enforcement, for example, would have a difficult time to looking into.